English text in the loading screens.
And off we go.
Everything that lives is designed to end.
So it is worth mentioning that Marbles is on PC as Tektheist is on PS4, so we'll be using Marbles real time for the timing method between these two players here. We'll just have to keep an eye on Marbles' timer once Marbles finishes, but Tech should be pretty good behind him. If you haven't been following the tournament today, we've been doing this for the past couple weeks, and among all of our runners here, we've made our way down to the top 16 among those initial 32, and especially in this game, anything can happen between these runners here tonight.
Yeah, Tech is at a bit of a disadvantage being on PS4. His load times will be a little longer, but I'd say the PC port is a little more unstable than PS4 maybe, so some things can happen.
A couple of things can happen. I'm looking at Marbles' quick menu, and I'm not noticing a specific input glitch that he was worried about. So fortunately,
yeah, seems like he's okay.
It seems like he is okay. Marbles is one of the runners that is plagued with a specific sort of weirdness that the game has that occasionally changes how his controller is perceived as an input device, sometimes flip-flopping between keyboard controls and controller controls.
Yeah, it's very, very annoying, mainly because if you press like down on your D-pad there's sort of like a quick use item menu, you'll press down and then that menu will just like immediately close. You can't change it to select any other items. Very, very annoying.
That was an interesting execution from Marbles there, but both runners basically being neck and neck.
Yeah, that was pretty good. It's pretty easy to lose some time on that last wave there. You have to do like a little bit of an AI manipulation.
And I didn't quite catch if Tech also performed that same AI manip, but both runners coming out almost in sync in the first 2 minutes. This is prologue, and a lot of the tricks that we do in the first 15 minutes of the run or so is very condensed and very compact. So things are going to be moving quite quickly here in the first 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, you definitely see a wide range of combat and some boss stuff, and as well as movement. There's some pretty significant skips. Prologue's pretty jam full of a lot of important techniques. This is definitely one of the games where learning the prologue and getting good at the beginning of the game is actually a little bit more difficult than it is in some other games.
I did notice their Tech threading the needle between some of those pipes there, jutting out as he was making his way through.
I find that pretty difficult, actually. I can't do it at all.
I've gotten to it a handful of times, but it certainly is difficult to find the right position that you need to be in with the changing camera angle. But we'll be transitioning to 3D gameplay here in just a minute, closing out the first shmup. Both neck and neck.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
We'll see how each runner approaches these individual fights.
Yeah, this first wave here, just a bunch of stubbies. They can do one attack that's very, very annoying where they start flailing their arms around. If you try and dash around them, you will do an evade instead. Loses a lot of time and prevents you from throwing out these swords that they're doing right now, which is sort of the main aspect of combat.
And coming into one of the first couple bosses here, Marks, it really shines how much damage we're able to output with this specific attack. Conveniently, the game allows us to have a specific weapon set equipped where the short sword is on our heavy slot, and by performing a dash with a heavy attack a couple frames later, we actually end up multiplying our damage by a fair margin, and we can really make short work of a lot of these bosses and enemies throughout these different rooms. And we'll see Marbles and Tech coming up to one of the first high jumps that we do in the run. 2B is very versatile when it comes to aerial movement, and we'll be seeing a lot of aerial movement later on in the run. Very handy, very useful to take advantage of that when maneuvering through these areas.
And sort of our main, the beginning of our aerial movements usually going to be what we call a lift, which is sort of like an uppercut with like the sword, just lifts the enemies up if they're around you, but it's more useful for movement. So just a jump and then a heavy attack right after. That's how we start off most of the tricks and skips where we need to gain a lot of height.
There's a bit of an interesting laser there from Marbles. It looked like it didn't quite pan out how he had wanted it.
Looks like he got one, maybe.
Tech clearing Stylo 2 first, but being on the opposite end of the room there. Coming up to bridge skip, Tech getting it first try, and Marbles shortly after. That is a very precise high jump that both runners just did. Very good execution from both these runners.
Probably the hardest trick in Prologue.
Oh yeah. Although it looks like Tech is having a little bit of issues in this top corner there. Trying to get out of bounds next to that staircase is a little tricky. Although it looks like he got it there.
And then a pod launch to clip through that second little wall and continue on to the last little silo here that Marbles is in right now. Fighting these bipeds with shields. You have to break the shield first before you can do damage.
Oh, and it looks like Marbles missed one of those stubbies with a laser.
Yeah, that's a pretty tricky laser. Ideally, you want to hit all four. Throw out a damage glitch to take out the last one. Not a huge time loss, but I'd say it's just a little more tilting than anything.
Marbles' experience definitely paying off in these opening moments for Prologue, having well over, I believe, is that 1,000 resets, or is that 500 resets that the man has? He is a ending wizard, and it is amazing how much time Marbles has put into the ending category for this run. He has run this almost since launch of the PC port and the PS4 version of the game. Marbles has been around here for a long time. Tektheist being one of the more recent runners in recent times, but has definitely made strides to improve his gameplay as a whole.
Yeah, I believe he has the fastest PS4 time at the moment.
I think so. I believe another runner on PS4 has unsubmitted, but Tech is on par, if not just behind that.
And this Marks II fight here, they're just going to try and throw out some swords to hit the saws that's moving across the ground. If they can get some damage on it before it stops moving, they do not need to use a melee buff to damage it down the threshold and progress to the next phase. Yeah, I think Tech is the only PS4 runner in this tournament, I believe.
In Phase 2, I think so. We had a couple PS4 runners in Phase 1.
Mm-hmm.
But both runners going and making their way into Engels, one of the more prominent bosses in Prologue. This first opening section here is mostly just hoping that we can deal enough damage to the boss to threshold him at a certain HP. But in just a little bit here, we're going to be hoping and crossing our fingers for good attack at RNG from this big guy.
Yeah, there's one attack that if he chooses will lose you over 20 seconds, so hopefully neither of them get it. But this part's just time, they're just waiting. We'll see what Marbles gets here. Looks like he's good.
With a ranged attack. That's definitely going to save a good amount of time if instead Engels has done a punch attack, he would have lost about 20 seconds or so. Definitely a major time loss overall, but both runners looking pretty clean here. Tektheist losing just a couple seconds or so because the clap attack is a little bit slower than a ranged attack, but still good RNG on both
much better
runners.
than punches, that's for sure. Both runners taking the wrong pipe. It's unfortunate to see.
Right pipe, Dan's game. Looks like we're at odds here between runners and commentary. I suppose, MT, you're a left piper like myself?
Yes, left pipe, best pipe. I'm not sure who to root for now.
We can root for the commentary.
Oh, that's true.
I think we'll do that.
Yeah, I think commentary will be the real winners here. Marble doing a double lift there. If you do a lift up a slope, you will sort of become grounded again and get access to another lift. So we can use that. That's sort of the first example. Marble did it earlier just to do a little plunge over top of where one of those, what's it called? I don't even remember.
Ninjas.
Yeah, going up to up to ninjas.
But that was an interesting execution from Marbles in taking out some of those stubbies on the very top of Engels. Their tech having a little bit of issues on those first couple stubbies. Those stubbies in particular are very notorious for dodging some of our damage glitches. Hence the name Ninjas. But both runners here back in the flight unit, looking to basically line up one of Engels' attacks with the active dialogue that's in place right now between 2B and 9S. So that way, once the dialogue finishes, Engels can begin his quote-unquote story punch that continues the section without eating up too much time. And it looks like Marbles got pretty lucky there.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get a really long attack, or you can even get the worst where he does a sort of double punch, which takes like, what, 20 seconds or so?
Oh yeah, it takes forever.
So that's why they're sort of staying to the side or behind him, just to sort of prevent him from doing a few of the slower attacks.
But another small little section of RNG, but not too bad. Marbles closing out with a very fast prologue. 1430 real time is pretty dang fast. That's faster than what I can do.
Yeah, definitely prologue, very hard section. there's definitely a discrepancy of at least like 20 seconds between like the best runners and those in like the lower end of the top 10 for sure.
What? Was...
I'm not sure what happened on.
50.
Huh. That was.
I've never seen that happen.
I've never seen
out
that
of
either.
the PS4 version. A little bit of confusion there on Tektheist's screen. I can't tell if he's dropping frames or if the game is just... well... Anyway.
Yeah, I think it just might be some frame drops.
I think so too. But once in the bunker here, both runners are going to be looking to set up some of their settings and go through some of the mashing involved in that. It's actually quite easy to mess up some of the inputs here, but it's definitely a bit of a roller coaster in memorizing what you need to do and when you need to do it. Marble's looking to skip some of the dialogue. Oof.
Went a little bit too far, walked into the dialogue trigger, so now he's forced to do this slow walk while dialogue's playing. What he was trying to do was bring up 9S's dialogue there and then walk into the dialogue trigger, which would cancel both and allow you to just keep dashing through there, saving just a couple seconds.
Better head for the hangar. Usually we can't get near flight units. They're way too expensive for us grunts. Too bad they can't
and unfortunately Tech just lagging a little bit behind. That might be as a result of Twitch's end. I'm not entirely certain.
Going back into another short little smup section here before we get to the city. I guess you'll see a bit of pod program used here. It's sort of like the laser in the smup sections. Looks like you used it to take out the first spawn. Very useful in certain situations.
But some different strategies do arise between different runners, especially when approaching some of these scripted waves here. Marble's quickly flicking the right stick so that way his pod fire can reach all of the incoming targets very, very quickly.
And using that pod program I mentioned to take out that fidget spinner enemy right away. You want to take those out as soon as possible. If they start spinning and moving around, it can be very, very annoying. Big time loss.
Unfortunately, it looks like just a little bit of internet issues on Tektheist's side. Tech issues, if you will. But
looks like time-wise he's not too far behind, so looks like it's just his internet. Hopefully it clears up shortly here.
Although you can sort of see on Marbles' timer there, right at the very end of some of these cutscenes, you will notice his timer dipping into the red. I believe it's colored blue for Marbles' layout, but he is a little bit behind his pace that he is looking at on his screen. We'll see if Marbles can pull out fast time, especially with the run that he's going on right now. Marbles definitely has a good chance if he can correct some of these issues going into some of these splits here, but making his way into Resistance Camp, Marbles is going to try and get through these fetch quests as fast as he possibly can.
Yeah, just some more mashing here, and then you also have to make sure that you accept the quests and not just mash through all of the dialogue and reject the quests. So looks like he picked them up no problem.
I've messed that up way more times than I care to admit.
I think Anemone is like the easiest one to accidentally say no.
Oh yeah. Sort of a weird design choice to have the main quest have a yes or no option to it. Just
Yeah.
near things. But Marble's going around here out in sort of this field area, collecting some of those items. Those aren't really the items that are important to us, but we still need them for one of the quests. But the completion items that we do get from these quests here do give us the opportunity to upgrade our short sword basically for free. And we'll be taking full advantage of that between our different movement options.
Some patented marble strats here, going past the first big biped and taking out some of the smaller stubbies before taking out the big one. That's his own little, I guess, personal flair. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that strat.
I don't like it either.
But if it's consistent for him, that's really the most important thing.
Sometimes the enemy RNG does make it so that way. Sometimes that strategy is useful, but most times the enemies would actually sort of reposition themselves to not be in a very convenient position. So just trying to take out those enemies as quickly as possible, as we can somewhat see from Tech's perspective, but sort of a different strategy from MarbleSoda there.
Getting the quest from Anemone, no problem. He's now going to just make his way on foot to the desert camp. He's just going to go back through the same area that we just saw, but instead of picking up items, he's just going to do these dash swings right through. Since he upgraded the sword, he now has access to a slightly faster movement option. Instead of dash punches, he could do these dash swings, just slightly, ever so slightly faster.
He does need to be careful that he doesn't mess any of them up, because of the small little gain that we get from each individual one. If you were to mess up one of them, then you actually reset yourself back about 5 or so dash swings that you would have gained time from. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword when trying to do this particular movement option, but Marbles, with extreme precision and practice, definitely has that nailed down to a science in some respects.
Stopping here at Desert, he's going to buy a couple things. He needs an animal bait for later. Getting some recoveries and some small buffs. He also picked up the resilience chip, which gives you super armor as long as you're over 80% HP. You can keep attacking while getting hit and not get put into hit stun or anything like that. And basically in this run we just heal as soon as we get hit, so we're pretty much always going to be above 80%.
Now, it's a little bit difficult to tell here where exactly Tech is behind MarbleSoda, but he isn't too far behind, because if the video feed is true here, Tech is just buying from the desert camp, so he's not too far behind Marbles here. Marbles does need to be careful on some of his gameplay in the coming sections.
Even in this section here, it's pretty easy to sort of fall off this invisible floor and void out, but not having any issues. Getting a required trigger next to that tunnel to skip that desert cutscene.
Oof, and it looks like Marbles managed to stumble on one of those rocks there, ending his sand slide. These sand slides are quite important because they do carry a good amount of our momentum with us, and going through the desert area with them is definitely an important aspect to focus on, especially when sort of zigzagging out into the middle there just to pick up one of our extra pods. That will be important in some of the shoot 'em up sections, as well as later on in A ending.
Yeah, it's also useful, sort of like as a recovery thing. If you're doing slow-mo and you accidentally do a laser, you could just swap to the other one. Slow-mo can be very important in some sections. Let's see what Don Burrows does here.
Oh, that was a good plunge into the rock there. Marbles being able to plunge at just the right time, so that way when the desert machine goes down into the sand, Marbles is able to displace 2B, so that way he's closer to the cutscene, progressing to the next section faster. Very nice sandslide out of that as well.
Yeah, there are a lot of situations where you want to be doing an attack or be starting an animation when like one of those slow walk triggers happen, just so you can get some extra distance.
But right now, Marbles is going into one of these apartment buildings. He's clipped out of bounds, so that way he can basically make short work of this desert housing area. But he is going to be looking for 2 specific triggers. One of them is going to be locked inside this sort of apartment building here. Fortunately, has no collision, so we could just do a long jump, make sure we have the trigger, and turn around. Marvel's doing a blind plunge, and he fell into Atom Pit. That's going to cost him a good amount of time.
Marbles is very good at the backup here. I think he got a big PB with this once, so we'll see. He's trying to get a double lift.
The double lift. Come on, Marbles. He must be thinking here that he's losing so much time as a result of this. What he needs to get out of this is a double lift on one of the walls here in order to gain enough height, and there he goes back onto the platform, getting the required trigger to spawn in the rest of these enemies and the rest of the fight. Tech not too far behind into Atom 1.
That slope that he was trying to get the double lift off is very, very small, so that's very, very difficult. And then Marbles just doing some menuing using some buff items, and did he change his weapon set as well?
He did.
Okay, yeah. He what he did there was just change weapon set 1 to be the same as weapon set 2, so when he throws out a damage glitch, he can change weapon sets and do it again. When you change weapon sets, it does not despawn the first sword that you threw out, so that just gives us higher DPS.
Oh no, but it looks like Tech is also fallen into the pit.
Oh man.
That is unfortunate, to say the least. I'm not too certain how well Tech has practiced the backup strategy there. He has a couple options to escape the pit because of some of the geometry with these buildings that are jutting out, but they are quite difficult to climb, and he might not be able to. Although it looks like he's trying some things, which is good. Experimentation is definitely what he's looking for, and it looks like he's gone onto the platform.
And in the meanwhile, Marbles doing a self-destruct there right before that cutscene, just to take out some more of those stubbies. That's sort of a big... it's important to kill as many as we can just to get experience and potentially get some chip drops later. Some chip drops that we need later on. And Marbles coming into the Atom fight here. I just have to damage him until he teleports to this rafter. He's going to try to shoot him with a double laser here. And that should do enough damage. He'll add in a third one just to be sure. And that should just skip a little bit of Atom hanging up on top of like some buildings. So he immediately comes back down here to the ground, and he's just going to try and throw out swords. Atom 1 definitely, at least for me, one of the more difficult bosses.
Atom is a definite pain in the butt, especially when trying to take him down quickly. That was a 29:15 or so, Atom 1, real time at that, so loadless time would be a little bit faster as a result. But still not too shabby. By my standards, that's okay, but Marbles might be kicking himself in the foot here.
Yeah, pretty significant time loss from falling in the pit without getting the trigger and having to get enough height to get back on the platform and hit it. He's still got a good lead, though.
Now, Marbles coming up to this box here. He's going to be looking to push it just the right amount of distance, so that way he can pod launch into the box and dash off to the left. But it looks like he might have pushed it a little too far.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell.
A little precise.
I'm a big fan of doing like a neutral dash backwards and then launching. I think that makes it a lot easier. I'm
interesting.
I'm not really sure how people are so good at doing the pod launch right up against that corner there.
I actually find a lot of success in having the camera really close, so that way I can sort of approximate 2B's angle really precisely. But another strategy that different runners have between the different skips there, what Marbles performed just then, while out of bounds, he was able to get within the range of the save area that is sort of made by the desert camp transporter, and he's able to use that to save and load his game, so that way he displaces through the desert area without occupying too much time.
Yeah, normally if you go inbounds, there's a dialogue trigger before you get to that save point radius, and you can't like open the menu and save during that dialogue. So that's why he had to clip out of bounds.
And we'll see if Tektheist has any better luck on the box. And it looks like he got a pretty quick clip there. It's a little difficult to tell given the internet issues that we seem to be going through.
Looks like he did get it pretty quickly. Might have done a little preemptive pause there.
So why would machines try to look like us?
There's no point
But looks like he got it.
I suppose.
Yeah. Marbles making his way out to the amusement park area. One of the first things that we're going to do in the amusement park is skip over the discovery cutscene right at the very beginning. Very convenient how the trigger for that is only yay high, and fortunately for us, we can go way over that height with ease. And we'll see more instances of jumping over triggers like that, and others later on as well. Marbles is also clipped out of bounds in this part of the amusement park to traverse the area a little faster. Marbles feeling very confident here. Let's go.
Going
Marbles
for auto-scroller coaster skip.
Feeling quite confident here. Let's see if he pulls it off. He's going to pick up a couple different triggers here to call the roller coaster. He was a little too low on that clip there, but he's managed to get himself locked onto the roller coaster. At least he'll be losing about 20 seconds or so. At worst, he's messed up the triggers on the roller coaster. So we'll just have to wait and see if his strategy has paid out for him. I know for me, when I tried this skip like 3 or 4 nights ago,
man,
it did not pan out too well. So hopefully Marbles has some better luck than I did. And
yeah, those
might be able to take it from Marbles here if the roller coaster breaks. It's really a coin toss on if Marbles got the right triggers he needed or not.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with like the triggers in this game, some of them are pretty small, so it's very easy to just miss one and not even be aware of it.
And some of them are very sort of peculiar, where you might run into them, but it's very not obvious in how they change the actual game, unless you had some sort of vision that could see the triggers themselves, which at At the moment, we do not have those tools available to us. I don't know if Marbles was too soon on that pod launch there, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, he just went there to pick
no.
up the last required trigger, and then what he wants to see is just the cutscene start. Unfortunately,
Oh no. Okay.
not seeing it.
Tech, simultaneously, Tech is also performing Auto Scroller Coaster, but Marbles unfortunately might have broken the roller coaster there. So it looks like he's gone back to get one of the cutscenes there and possibly restarting from the very beginning. I don't know if that's a smart move from Marbles there, clipping out. We're a little uncertain on how all these things really work out, but Tektheist looks like he was able to get off the roller coaster, and that might actually put Tech ahead of Marbles at this point. If Tech goes into the next boss fight here with all the triggers he needs, then he might be able to make it past Marbles. Marbles going around for another swing on the roller coaster. That's about another minute or so of waiting.
Looks like Tech voided out there, so I'm not sure if he's going to have enough time to actually reach the spear here.
Yeah, so a strategy that
kind of hard to see.
Yeah, it looks like he got warped up to the boss area, but unfortunately did not quite get what he was looking to do. You are actually able to, in the time that it would take for the roller coaster to go all the way around, you can actually make it to the spear that's located quite close to the amusement park area. But that actually puts Tektheist in the lead here. Marbles, unfortunately, going around the roller coaster here is not going to be too profitable, but we'll cross our fingers and hope it works, and it does. I'm quite surprised that actually did work. All things considered, Marbles taking another ride around the roller coaster, having fixed his ride, but he's definitely at least a little bit behind Tektheist. I'd say about 30 seconds from the footage that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, that skip there, pretty new skip, so it's not something that a lot of runners have a ton of experience with. Definitely very easy to miss triggers or mess up briefly on the movement like Tech did and not actually make it to the spear.
But this does put both runners in sort of a precarious situation, given that Tektheist has a small little lead over Marbles here. We'll see in the coming sections if Tech is able to hold it. It didn't look like Tektheist got hacked in the bodies phase of Beauvoir. That could have cost him at least 5 seconds or so for every hack. We'll see if Marbles has any better luck. As I say that, Marbles gets hacked, putting him a little bit more behind, I should say.
Hit by the inside of the shockwave as well.
Tektheist does have to be careful on some of these cutscenes, though. It is a known issue that some of these cutscenes would actually cause him to not be able to skip the actual cutscene itself. Some instances do occur where he would
that is the worst.
Wait for the cutscene to happen. It is so bad. I've had it happen to me maybe once or twice on PC, but it's quite prevalent on console, and is quite unfortunate if that happens. If Tektheist's footage is on par here, he might be ahead by at least, I'd still say about 30 seconds between the dialogue that Marbles has to hit here.
Seems about right, and looks like he got a small recovery as well, or he bought one at the desert camp, so It's going to be able to use self-destruct to do that box clip after Pascal's village. Does Marble do the box clip, or does he still go around the side?
I believe he still goes around the side, which will be interesting because Marbles is a strong advocate of actually not doing a little bit of that better movement that most runners perform by clipping through a specific box in the fence and getting to where we want to go a little bit faster. The older routing actually did go around one of the side buildings that, through just recent discoveries, we don't do anymore.
Yeah, the around the building is just to get some dialogue to start playing as soon as possible so that it's ended by the time we get to where we need to go. But I believe we're able to actually cancel that dialogue instead in the resistance camp, so it was found to be faster to just try and get there as soon as possible, not even worry about the dialogue.
Exactly. And it's a little bit difficult here to see on Tektheist's screen, but we'll probably get a better picture of it on Marble's perspective. But both runners here are trying to go to the resistance camp and do a death warp that will bring them all the way back to Pascal's village after having saved in Pascal's village. So both runners will be riding an animal out to the resistance camp, and because of them both being on 1 HP, they'll be able to collect the quest item that they need from the resistance camp, die, and go all the way back to Pascal's village without having to walk that distance again. They're only having to make that travel once, which is very handy.
Unfortunately, due to the frame drops, we did not get to see some really amazing movement tech on the boar by Tech. It's kind of a shame.
That's all. Closing this channel.
Marble's unfortunately having to wait just a little bit before talking to an enemy. Because of the active dialogue, he chose to not cancel that dialogue with the door that exists in the resistance camp that we're able to interact with. But if this perspective is true, then Marbles might be making up time here, but it's difficult to tell due to Tektheist's frame drops here. Within about 10 seconds of each other, it's quite difficult to tell when exactly these runners are put together. Given the perspectives here, they're almost neck and neck, but I still believe Tektheist might be in the lead. I'll take a look on his Twitch page itself, see if he's anywhere ahead between him and Marbles.
I knew it.
I promise you.
2B. Command is deploying.
Yeah, I can't really say for certain here.
So let's get going.
But anyway, both players just making their way to these angles in the city here. There are two. We have to make our way up to some flight units. And there'll be another little, there's another little skip coming up here.
Well, let's find another route.
Little bit of trouble with that route there.
Should be on the roof of that building up ahead. It'll be dangerous, but we're not going anywhere.
Honestly, they are a little difficult to navigate sometimes.
Okay, so I have a little bit of advanced information here, looking at both of their Twitch channels individually, but Marbles is looking to be just a little bit ahead if what the images that I'm looking at from Tektheist's stream is a little bit behind Marbles, I'd say by about 20 seconds here. Now, what we're looking at here on Marbles' screen, both runners are going to be trying to skip this first City Angles machine, and we saw there from Marbles escaping the arena by high jumping over the invisible wall. That's possible because the developers, for some reason, only made it yay high, but we obviously don't want any part of that.
Luckily for us.
Luckily for us. Very convenient as well.
Imagine if they had, like, infinite vertical range.
Oh, yeah.
The Marble's just buffing up here. Doing a couple pod programs on the right side of Angle's, right sort of in his shoulder there. The missiles come out 360 degrees, but all of them will hit him if you are in the right spot. Takes him out very quickly. And we can move on to the next section of the game. Negotiations, they're going to make their way down to the city ruins. And check out what's going on down there.
Unfortunately, it's a little bit difficult to tell from Tektheist's perspective here, but Marbles is about 20 to 25 seconds ahead of Tektheist at this point, from what it looks like.
Marbles with a bit of spaghetti hands right now, it seems like.
If we're lucky.
You're not much for plans, are you, 2B?
Given circumstances, I probably would be squirming just a little bit as well after having messed up something as crucial as Adam Pitt in the early game. It's definitely going to put a fire under Marbles' butt to go a little bit faster. But making his way into the negotiation section here, Marbles is going to try and defeat Steve here in front of him. Conveniently, we can actually get a level up from the enemy here, but we're only able to do that once without having to reset the instance. So we're just going to kill the boss once, and later we will see Marbles attempt to escape the arena that he's encased in now.
You'd probably be surprised at how quickly it happened. You destroyed your own creators? Oh, there's no need to fret about
Yep,
that.
since all you have to do here is we're basically forced to listen to Adam till he's done talking. Clipping out of bounds will let us take out those enemies that are in that tunnel there, as well as maybe pick up some items. But a little extra experience, and it makes it easier, it makes the movement out of this area a bit faster.
One thing that is worth mentioning there, because of the size of this wall here, it is a little tricky to get over, given that you need to use one of Steve's attacks in order to climb the actual wall. That was an interesting amount of height. But the camera's perspective definitely does not help us very much when it comes down to climbing some of those areas there. One thing that is worth mentioning is Marbles is picking up some key materials here, hoping and praying that he has enough materials for an upgrade for his sword. A couple runners have utilized this specific routing to get a little bit faster times, but it is heavily RNG dependent on 2 materials, I believe. But Marbles is going to make sure that he has the best possible chances in getting that upgrade if he can.
Yeah, it's very uncommon, but it does pump up your damage in combat by a lot.
About time we had access to those.
It's a pretty considerable damage increase, although it is not actually required in order to get fast times. Sometimes that damage can be actually made up for by just having good combat. And that's something that a lot of runners really struggle with, is having good, efficient combat is definitely, at least in my case, and a good number of runners' cases as well, is that having efficient combat is very difficult to pull off.
And there's also sort of the factor of maybe having crits, maybe having not, and the enemies that you would ideally only want the enemy to do maybe one attack before it dies. But so sometimes you might have to throw in some slow-mo in order to prolong that attack, so you don't get a second one. There's a lot that goes into good combat.
But I'd say at this point, Marbles is about 30 or so seconds ahead of Tech from what I'm looking at off their individual Twitch streams. I'm not too certain if it's Twitch that's giving us issues here, or it might be on Speed Gaming's end. I'm not too certain. But both runners will be looking to get some stuff from Pascal's Village here, mostly opting to buy damage buffs and defensive buffs from one of these vendors here.
Marble's checking the weapon shop trader to see if he got the materials to upgrade the sword. He did not. So there goes that dream.
Unfortunately, not so lucky as he wants to be, but that still does mean he can make up for a good amount of damage when he equips some of these plug-in chips that he can possibly have. I did not get a chance to look at which he had, but he did make some space for plug-in chips when he went to sell some of his system chips. Surprisingly, we can actually remove elements of the heads-up display to make room for more damage, which is a very handy touch.
So did Marble equip his chips already?
I don't think so. I think Marbles...
Or does he equip after these 4 robots?
I think he does it afterwards, but it's a little bit difficult to tell from Tektheist's perspective on Speed Gaming, but I did catch that Tech had upgraded his sword, so it looks like Tektheist had a little bit better RNG when it comes down to his base damage. That base damage increase will be a huge bonus if Tektheist also has any critical chips as well. Let's take a look if Marbles got lucky in terms of critical chips. He's going to equip a resilience chip, and are those 2 crit plus 2s?
Those looks like 2 crit plus 2s, yeah.
Damn, that is a huge amount of critical potential there.
Looks like he had like 10 crit chips. That's insane.
A good amount of plus 1s as well.
And each crit plus 2 giving 4% crit chance. So Marbles right now has an 8% chance to do critical damage, and I believe critical damage is 500%.
It's pretty absurd. Yeah.
So damage glitch, which is 4.5 or 5 times, plus the crit damage, plus taunting, plus melee buffs, is going to do a lot of damage.
Tektheist having a little bit of...
looks like he did not get any crit chips.
I think those longer Japanese names, I don't believe they were shockwaves, but I believe they may have been weapon attack ups.
Not quite as good as crits, but definitely useful.
Damage is damage, and after all, this is a RPG, and will accept any form of damage. Weapon attack up being a little bit more consistent in their output, but criticals definitely being superior.
And Marble's just doing a skip there that we call Rainbow Road, doing a bunch of pod spins. He's able to stay in the air long enough to get over to that bridge. There is also an alternate strat where you can void out right underneath the drawbridge, and you will respawn back up top. And clipping out of bounds as well. In order to skip going inside this castle, we can just do some lifts on the outside of the windows, which will allow us to get on top of a structure, clip back in bounds on some stairs that are out of bounds, and get a trigger by that teleporter that will allow us to fight A2.
I really enjoyed that skip. Definitely learning that really kind of puts it into perspective on how things are built in the map, using these sorts of like Lego bricks in some of these set pieces, like the castle. It's very sort of interestingly put together from the developers, but very conveniently we're able to scale the castle despite how complex it is. I saw one pretty good crit there. Two crits from Marbles on A2, and to close out A2, a third one.
Looks like one where she was running away as well. Yeah, the crits are the sort of broken glass sound. If you hear a lot of those, that's what Marbles wants. Failed this sort of getting over this dialogue trigger here. Normally, if you walk to the right, dialogue box will open and force you to go back to the left, but with enough height, we're able to plunge right through that. Marbles actually did not take out this one robot that was by the teleporter, so it was locked. He had to destroy that robot, go a little bit outside to get those other robots to de-aggro so that he could access the teleporter in order to transport back to Pascal's village. Looks like Tech starting the fight as well.
We'll see if Tech is able to make his way into a pretty good fight here against A2. He is at a little bit of a detriment in terms of not having his critical chips, although he does have the better base damage and consistent damage, considering he has
looks like
a level 3 sword.
Looks like a pretty decent fight. Right when she reached the threshold, unfortunately, she got lifted up in the air, so that loses a bit of time. But Tech Jet, he definitely has a chance here. The stronger sword plus the weapon up, it's gonna make things a little interesting.
Marbles is going to be looking to clip out the back end of the resistance camp here and collect a trigger that's at the very beginning of the flooded city. And underneath one of these buildings here, he's going to get underneath it and trigger the cutscene. But it looks like he was a little bit under, just by a couple inches even. He was pretty dang close.
Looks like he did the pod spin a little too early. There we go. Waits a little longer.
Oh no, he's having a little bit of difficulty.
Oh, no.
He might be canceling that a little bit too late, but third time's the charm.
There we go.
Marbles is going to void all the way back up to the top of the resistance camp area.
Oh, gets instead of the plunge, he gets the, the sort of walking heavy attack. Still manages to void out and make it down there, though. Marbles might be feeling the pressure a little bit. I'm not sure if he knows exactly where Tech is at.
I'm not too certain either. I know Marbles has said in the past that he, especially when racing, is just sort of in the zone, in the moment, not really wanting to look at chat or where the other runner is located. But he definitely has to feel something, considering all the time losses that he has seen earlier in the run. Tektheist isn't too far behind, and a couple good executions on some of these future skips might close the gap even more than we've seen previously with some of these races. Getting one of the triggers for the Flooded City area, and once again going back up to the top of the resistance camp, so that way he can plunge down and reach the later half of the Flooded City area, completely bypassing some of the enemies and terrain in that specific area.
Looks like he's having a pretty good shore fight. He's coming up to the fidget spinner right now. This can give runners a lot of trouble. Looks like he didn't get a chance to really move, so that's good.
Some of those enemies can be a little bit tough to take out, considering how they get placed in the map and all the different attacks that they do. The biggest proponent to that is the fidget spinner. Definitely taking care of him first as quick as possible is going to be something that both runners looked to do first, but it's everybody's favorite part. The best, greatest, and longest shoot-'em-up section in this game. I hope everybody's butts are ready.
Yeah, we got about 12 minutes of shmup action here. I guess we should mention, as always, I think we have a bounty on skipping this section. If you can find out how to skip this section, you will get, I believe it's $2.2 thousand, as well as a pizza, I believe, homemade pizza.
I believe that pizza is made, or would be made, from one of our runners tonight, Tektheist, a craftsman of pizza, if you will.
So, any way to skip this very, very long shmup section, there's a big bounty on it.
It's definitely one of the more disliked sections of the run, mostly because it's just rather boring. There's not too much to say in this section, so definitely, if you're interested, definitely check back in a couple minutes here. Stand up, stretch, get some water, I guess.
Water. Stay hydrated.
I hope everybody has drank a liter of water by now in our stream. Kappa.
doing Stay Hydrated bot's job for him.
So, this late into the run, I don't quite know who could actually pull this through. Marbles is still relatively consistent between some of these upcoming sections in the later half of the game, but I'm still feeling like Tech can pull some of this through. If Tech has good execution, he might be able to do this.
Yeah, I'd say Marvel's definitely more consistent, but I don't know, depending how his mindset is. I know sometimes...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say sometimes when you sort of have sort of those couple minute time losses early, it can kind of affect you later on.
Definitely feel the pressure there. You kind of have to wonder what's going through Marbles' head here. Whether... I like to think that Marbles is keeping his cool, but we'll have to see later on, and between how these two runners perform in the later halves of the run. Definitely a lot more action-packed than this section.
It looks like Marble's getting level 15 pretty early, I think. I guess he did do the roller coaster twice, maybe? I'm not really sure.
That would be a good proponent.
Maybe
his pit fight, I forget how many enemies he did end up killing, but he had a relatively good pit fight at the very beginning, so in combination with doing roller coaster twice, that could definitely put him ahead in XP and put him in a better position to get level 20 by the end of the run.
Because, yeah, if Tech does the fast stuff, he should only be level 19.
Although Marbles is going to have to pivot off of those 2 crit plus 2s that he has, which is a good amount of crit potential. It's not every day that you get those kinds of chips, but Tektheist is going to have a little bit better consistency in terms of his damage output. Marbles, unfortunately, is going to have to rely on some of those crits, but those crits will be happening quite often given his chipset.
And Marble's having a very good first generator. There are 3 generators that they have to take out here, and it's probably the main place to lose time in this entire section, really.
Hunter Squadron deploying out of North 12C Defense HQ. I'm the commanding officer.
What's sort of amusing is that sometimes those cores will rotate either the wrong way or the right way, and unfortunately some of it is just RNG, and there may not be a way to control it that we know of.
We've got mortars lining the shoreline here. All the EMP shielding in the
Yeah, we try to take them out as fast as possible. Sometimes you're just a little bit too late, and it'll do some really wonky rotations that'll, I don't know, it frustrates me.
It definitely frustrates me as well. But Tech looking to be quite lucky on core 1,
Let's try for a more direct approach.
taking that out as fast as he possibly can.
And getting the level 15 after killing it, so he is definitely a little bit behind Marble's experience-wise here. Not a huge difference, but it does affect your damage output a little.
Yeah, definitely not by too much. We'll see by the end of the run here where each runner ends up in terms of XP, but each of these individual flyers that both of the runners are destroying do grant a very slight amount of XP. So,
and 9S can steal it. That is a thing. If 9S gets the killing blow, he will take all that experience.
Bloody kill stealer. It's always amusing when something like that happens because in other shoot 'em up sections in the run, sometimes it can happen where 9S sort of disappears from the screen, and it has a weird interaction with how the game plays in a shoot 'em up section, where our partner is almost ever present. Unfortunately, I don't think we've seen it yet from these runners tonight, but it may have happened in an earlier tournament match where our partner was almost omnipresent, shooting everything down before the player could really take them down. So it's nice for convenience, but unfortunately it's not nice for retaining experience.
Yeah, that's a very, very strange glitch. 9S will just zip way far away somewhere, but he can still target enemies somehow due to how the game does these shmup sections. Very weird. It's actually useful on that city angle section. If you get him to zip out there, he will actually somehow manage to kill the city angles for you before you get there. It's very weird.
Well, it's interesting because I had seen, obviously this has happened a couple times in my experience, but from some of the clips that I've seen, it's interesting how that instance has really happened, because from the player's perspective, 9S just sort of up and disappears, but in that particular circumstance, Engels actually seems to punch 9S like out of the way. But sometimes it does actually happen where 9S does spontaneously just disappear. So sometimes we understand what's going on, but other times it just doesn't make any bloody sense.
Yeah, we honestly have no idea for sure. Only theories at this point.
But yes, this is quite a close race this deep into the run. Both runners did end up doing the roller coaster skip earlier in the amusement park, but Tektheist actually panned out to be on top, Marbles having lost about a minute or so, I would say, over a minute after having ridden the roller coaster twice around. So Tektheist is in a good position for the upset here, but it's gonna be an uphill battle.
Yeah, he's gonna have to play very, very well.
Tek's gonna have to focus pretty hard in these upcoming fights here as Marbles approaches Core 3, the final core in Groon.
And one thing that I always noticed was that the camera angles are always slightly different for these cores, so you have to have like slightly different joystick positions for each one. It kind of messes me up sometimes.
Oh, it's wonky. There's some other ones in the game that unfortunately we won't be able to see today, but in the all major endings speedrun, there are some pretty wonky camera angles in shoot 'em up sections. But returning to some interesting gameplay on Marbles' perspective here, immediately he's going to use the drown areas for the flooded city area. Fortunately, he did not proc the dialogue that would otherwise happen, and he managed to displace to be into a later part of the flooded city area, just saving a little bit of time, which is nice.
Yeah, and then a second one there, much smaller time save, but still slightly faster. So we have another clip coming up here to get to the copied city elevator. This is going to be interesting for Tektheist because he has VC level 3, which actually changes the lineup a little, I believe.
What do you think the chances are for Tektheist to just go all the way around and skip having to do copied city clip there? That took a couple tries from Marbles, but
I mean, there's a pretty decent chance of that, I think. I think if it was me now, I would do there's another clip out that you can do a little bit further in the sewers, and then you can plunge down to the elevator from there. That's a lot easier, but it could be that he knows the lineup for VC3.
What is this?
Analysis. This area is composed of crystallized
so
silicon and carbon.
now that Marbles has
The corpses.
entered the copied city elevator, he's in the copied city, skipping a good amount of the walk around to this area, but what he's going to be looking for is to clip out of the arena facing Adam in a clip up against one of these boxes here. But his goal is to clip out of the arena and head over to the elevator, but oh geez, he's having a little bit of difficulty clipping through here. He's going on 4th try mansplaining, 5th try mansplaining.
Ooh. And this is just some time loss. Starting here, you need to get it within probably three tries to not lose very much time. He does finally get it. He's going to make his way over to the elevator that he came out of. He's going to bring that elevator back up and use it to cancel some of Adam's dialogue here. Adam talks for a very, very long time. So he's still saving a lot of time over listening to all of Adam's dialogue, but another chance for Tech to catch up.
Although it might be a little bit difficult for Tech to do that. I'm looking at both of his perspectives here on
Yeah,
Speed Gaming and from his personal Twitch channel.
choosing
Might
just to
turn
take the
out
intended
he's
route.
Gonna go all the way around.
So it looks like you were right.
Unfortunately, causing a little bit of time loss there after having attempted the clip out.
Yeah, no sense in sitting there for minutes trying to get that clip. If
Whoop, oh no. Tech might be a little bit lost in the City Ruins caves.
Oh,
They're
and
going a little
he
bit
doesn't
too
ha-
far.
he doesn't have the mini map either.
Oh no.
Oh,
Unfortunately, Tech's window here might be slipping away. He might still have his foot in the door here if Marbles messes some of the later game tricks up. We'll have to see after Adam here. That was a crazy crit on like the last frame of the fight for Marbles. They're ending the fight extremely quickly.
yeah. Really, Marbles, I believe, has defensive buffs, so chances of him dying on a boss are pretty low at this point.
It would have to be something pretty major here for Marbles to lose time on, and for Tektheist to gain that time back in order to close out the run here. Definitely about a minute, maybe over a minute, maybe 2 minutes between these runners here. It would have to be pretty major, as I had said, for Marbles to mess up.
I think really the main thing is not to soft lock in factory, in deep factory. That's probably the biggest one that I can think of.
I think so too. Tech attempting to do the mansplaining skip here,
No kidding.
trying to clip out of the arena that we face Adam 2 in is definitely a little bit tricky there. The angle is quite precise, despite what most runners would think otherwise. It's definitely up there with being definitely being up there with some of the other precise clips that do exist. But he's essentially going to go over to the elevator and play a specific dialogue line at a specific time. That's going to enable him to skip one of the final dialogue blocks that Adam has, and basically immediately going into the fight with Adam.
And Marbles arriving at factory here, he's sort of forced into another one of these slow walk dialogue states, but by, as Shabu would say, putting the camera at 2B's upper thigh, she'll push the camera away and walk forward repeatedly, and that's actually a little faster than the slow walk.
All in the name of speed.
Purely for speed.
No other reasons. Let's see if Tektheist has as good of a Adam 2 fight as we had seen from Marbles. Definitely with that consistency in terms of damage there. Although it looks like Adam gave him an invulnerable attack where Adam is, for a small period of time, untargetable, which would cost him a couple more seconds than he would have liked. Marbles strategically talking with Pascal there so that way he can cancel one of Pascal's dialogues that we would hear, and actually causing the Deep Factory area to load in just a couple seconds faster. Still very nice. Opting to push his camera to the ceiling there and not look at any of the mooks as he dashes on past them.
Yeah, if you have an enemy close enough to you and it's on your screen, there is auto-targeting in this game, so if you do an attack, you're trying to do the dash, dash swings for movement, and you'll target the enemy instead, and that's very bad in that sector. In that section of factory, it'll actually cause a bad ending.
Now, one of the tricks that Marbles, and I hope Tektheist does as well here, is to clip out of the Mook's room, so that way he can call this elevator as quickly as he possibly can. It's a lot more consistent than having to kill the enemies in this room for the triggers to happen.
One of those lasers hitting Pascal there. It's pretty funny.
But the goal that Marbles is looking to do here is to clip out of this specific room so that way he can reach the bottom of the map. That will reset the instance of the elevator here, allowing him to enter the elevator and go back up to the Mook's room that we had just left.
Very, very different than than the intended route, that's for sure. He's going to clip out of bounds up by this pipe, and he is going to fall down, try and get a trigger right before he voids out.
The door's open.
Nice, well done there from Marbles. Getting the trigger down by the door is a little bit tricky there, because he does need to jump at the right time in order to void all the way back up to the top of that room there, and once he has that trigger, he can just plunge down out of bounds to the final section of the deep factory area, effectively skipping it.
Yep, and he also skipped that soft lock point there. He got enough distance with the plunge. That big wall there that he plunged over, if you get stuck behind that, it is a soft lock and you have to reload your save. So
just here, just waiting for the priest to open up the elevator there. Unfortunately, a lot of waiting between these different sections here, and especially going into this boss fight that Marbles is in. Because the boss is untargetable and invulnerable for the time being, it can just hang up on one of these bridges. Just hang around.
no big deal.
9S, that Goliath we just encountered.
I got it. I've been keeping an eye on you. I'm gonna shut off power to the factory now.
Fortunately, it's incredibly convenient to just be out of reach of the boss and not have to worry about a thing.
Yeah, just keep him in the same spot. He doesn't attack. He'll just sit there until you respawn back on the ground.
What Marbles is waiting for is a specific music trigger, and once he hears that trigger, he's going to return down to the ground and start damaging the boss.
I just shut down the electrical grid.
When all the lights go out, that's when he can damage the boss.
Ooh, those crits! Wow, got a very good start.
Short work of Soshi there,
Like
getting only one attack.
I didn't see too many crits there, just the ones at the beginning, but still a good fight.
Very strong fight there. Tech looking to have a little bit of issues there when encountering the Mooks area. It looked like he had tried to clip out, but had a little bit of difficulty entering the elevator with Pascal. Pascal always being a silly boy when trying to enter things.
Yeah, he has a little trouble walking through the elevator doors from time to time.
Very weird camera angle there from Marbles, but nevertheless, he's trying to get out of the factory area.
Marble is actually somewhat unique in the community for using a camera. His camera is a little more zoomed out than the default, and I don't think anybody else does that. So
I don't think so. Most of us do have just default camera distance, but Marbles definitely plays with a wider field of view. And in some cases that can actually be a bit of a disadvantage, given how if an enemy is on screen and 2B auto locks to that target, then she'll actually, instead of
No thanks.
throwing her attack in the direction that we want her to, she'll sort of pull off
I'm heading back to the resistance.
towards
camp.
that enemy,
What about you?
and that's not exactly what we would want. So Marbles does have to be careful on which direction he points his camera in, but he has had a lot of practice in doing so, and changing which way he
Say
faces
again?
his camera.
I'm not receiving.
And it looks like Tech was successful on his Deep Factory skip as well. It did take a couple different tries there between falling down to the trigger, but it turned out just fine in the end. That's still going to save a good amount of time instead of having to run all the way around. Although Marbles pulling ahead pretty strong here into the final couple fights of A ending.
Yeah, Marble's having a pretty good factory.
We're gonna have to see how Marbles fares in these last couple sections. I'm not too certain if Tektheist bought the same defensive buffs that Marbles did, but Tektheist definitely, or Marbles definitely being a lot more consistent. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh. Yeah, so it is actually possible to, when you're trying to get on that bridge, to fall in the lava there, and what do you do from here?
Well, I believe his only option is to reload his save, because
So it
especially
is the
being at
true soft
bottom,
lock?
I think this is a true soft lock. There are no enemies down here to kill you, and the boss cannot reach you, unfortunately. And depending on when Tektheist had last saved, that might actually be before the shoot-'em-up section there, but unfortunately he might not have any means to kill himself, which is really unfortunate, because that out of bounds that Tektheist is in is a result of going onto the bridge that we would otherwise hang off of. But he went too high, and he actually ended up plunging off the other side of that bridge and not being able to hang in sort of the open space.
Take this bastard down.
So it looks like as a consequence of that, Marbles pretty much has it wrapped up here as long as he finishes. Just making short work of Core 1 here.
I believe that was level 19 off of Core 1 there.
Yes.
They're still coming? What do we do?
Rather unfortunate what happened to Tektheist there in Deep Factory,
Pascal?
but
Yeah.
Marvel's definitely strong to the finish, making good use of his defensive buffs to make sure in each of these individual fights to not take almost any damage whatsoever. It's very difficult to actually die in regular A ending with defensive buffs. Can definitely save players in more ways than one.
Oh yeah, it's actually kind of scary doing it without defensive buffs, because a lot of these bosses can kill you in 2 hits. So if there's if they do an attack that hits twice in a quick succession, it's very easy to be a little bit slow healing and just take a death.
Dang, Marble's making short work of those machines at Pascal's fence. They're not getting the 1 cycle on Core 1, but definitely going pretty dang quick in that on Core 2, I mean. Definitely being pretty quick
And got the dialogue cancel as well. There's a little bit of dialogue from Pascal there, but if we talk to 9S right before that starts, it'll cancel both of those. And then as soon as we get down here, close to this structure, cutscene will start. Saves a little bit of time. So now we're on final boss Steve. He has 4 phases. First 2 are pretty straightforward. He's just going to throw out swords. Looks like he got platforms, unfortunately.
Ooh, that's unlucky.
Yeah, depending on what attacks he chooses, once he gets to about half health, you kind of want to start doing some slow-mo just to prevent him from getting those platforms out.
I think Marbles is one of the few runners who doesn't utilize slow-mo to its fullest potential, especially in some of these later fights where, especially for Steve here, it would actually have saved him in some of these instances, especially with his crazy damage output. These
crazy crits
are insane. He's getting crits left and right.
Yeah, I think he definitely could have skipped phase 2 with that.
For sure. Definitely something to look into for MarbleSoda. Going into phase 3 here, I don't think Marbles is as risky as some of the rest of us going for some self-destruct strategies. Marbles opting to do probably the safer route, I would say.
And Marbles not actually getting level 20, that's interesting.
That is interesting, considering I eat my words. Marvel's going for the self-destruct on Eve phase 3. That cut out a good amount of combat, especially with those crits. He probably got below the threshold required in order to begin self-destructing, but because self-destruct has a really wide area of effect when it triggered, we can definitely take advantage of that on Eve phase 3 if he gave us bad RNG for the rest of the fight. Definitely makes swift work of that phase.
Yeah, and self-destruct does a ton of damage, not very useful in a lot of situations because there's a very long cooldown time where you can't do anything, you can't even heal, so it's very easy to die. But whenever there's a cutscene afterwards, it can definitely speed things up, as you saw there. And then phase 4, just only pod fire. Marble finishes it up.
Very strong to the finish there. So 132.17 from what it looked like. Real time on Marble's timer there. We'll have to reconvene for Marble's precise loadless time, but Marbles does take the win here tonight. How do you feel, my man? Looks like we're having a little bit of issues here, but overall strong to the finish for Marbles.
So as a result of this, Marbles wins, so he will move on to Winners Round 2, where he will race the winner of Icefire and Unity. That Icefire Unity race is going to be a good one. That's the last one that we have left in Round 1. That's going to be a very good race, as well as the winner of that race versus Marble. Also going to be very good.
Maybe. I'm just going to say maybe to that. If I play like this again, I don't know.
I guess just
okay, Marbles.
Just don't do roller coaster. Easy.
It's okay, Marbles.
Somehow I managed to miss the tank trigger, and I realized it when I got onto the roller, or I failed the skip, and I was stuck on the roller coaster. I'm like, wait a minute. There's no tank on my mini-map. Somehow I missed that trigger. I don't exactly know how, but okay.
Just real quick, looks like Tektheist will go down to the losers bracket. He will play the loser of Icefire and Unity. Okay, sorry, Marble. Any other thoughts on your run besides the roller coaster stuff?
The whole run was really bad. I mean, I was losing time on basically every split, and these aren't even my normal PvE splits, so that's pretty bad. On the bright side, didn't get punches. I had loads of crit chips.
Dude, you had like at least 10 crit chips. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And that was probably the fastest phase 3 Eve I've ever had.
Really?
I mean, that was like not even the full combo. I did a high jump program, and then I did a high jump, but because of the crit on the plunge, I didn't even need the second program.
Wow.
So it was pretty quick.
Plunge crits Craigasm.
So good.
Those plunges do deal a good amount of damage on Eve, and to boot with self-destructing on top of all of that. Very clean and fast phase 3 for Eve.
I was surprised that you didn't get to level 20. Like, it seemed like you got level 15 really, really early. I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of surprised too, because I was level 8 before even getting to Amusement Park. So typically that's a pretty good indicator of being able to hit 20 anyway. I was kind of surprised I didn't get it either, but I guess maybe missing that level 20 Mook and Factory cost me it. I don't know, maybe.
Might have been a larger margin than that, but we'll see.
Did you
I'm
get the
not
self-destruct after Bokushi?
I did get it, yeah. Unfortunately, he chose that rolling attack, so nothing I could do about that, just free time loss. But yeah, I wasn't too happy with that run. But, I mean, I don't deserve to win that. To be honest, like, once I saw how far behind I was at the end of Beauvoir, I thought Tech had a pretty good shot to take this one out from me.
We were kind of worried at that as well. I had brought up both of your Twitch channels. We were having a little bit of difficulty following along with Tektheist's perspective during this, but when put side by side between each of your Twitch channels, it was definitely very close.
Yeah.
Tektheist had the lead for a couple minutes, but going into City Angles, you caught it back.
Yeah, I lost 2 minutes and 50 seconds on Beauvoir, so pretty costly. but that was something that I told myself going into the tournament I was gonna go for roller coaster every single match regardless, and I'm gonna stick to that. It's probably gonna cost me a match down the line, but you know, it's fine.
It certainly is a risky strategy. I'll say that. But I think with that, thank you to both MarbleSoda and Tektheist for racing today. Definitely check them out if you haven't already. Both very awesome guys. Thank you to MT for commentating this with me.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ethereum.
And for those of you who are just joining us for this tournament, definitely check out tourney.nearspeedrun.com and the speedgaming.org/NA link for the tournament that we're having and the bracket associated with this. We still have a good number of matches ahead of us in Phase 2. Some fast runs to be seen, and some faster ones yet.
And the next one we have scheduled is actually Ethereum himself versus Dan Flesh. So that's on Thursday. So check that out.
Yeah, that'll probably change. There'll probably be some inserted in between, but I know we have Ice, Fire, and Unity is the only one left in this round, or this first round. And then after that, everyone will be scheduling for their next match, so I'm sure we'll have plenty. Hopefully no more runs like I just did today, but, you know.
No, I can guarantee you my run is probably going to be as very similar to yours, Marbles. Anyway, thank you again to everybody for stopping by tonight on Speed Gaming here. Thank you to Speed Gaming for hosting this tournament with us. And I think with that, we'll say goodnight. Have a good night, everybody.